Welcome everybody back to the Crossing King Garage. It is a great time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year, and we're talking about one of my absolute favorite all-time topics, movie musicals.
Today we are going to be counting down our top 10 film musicals. Now, one little kind of caveat here. We are not counting anything that is straight up animation. So if it is a feature-length animated musical, it does not qualify for this list. If you need something along those lines, check out one of mine and Dad's Disney rankings here above my head.
And we are having a couple of films, however, that do have some animated parts of them. But as a member of the Crossing King family, we really want your input. So if we happen to miss a musical that you really like and think should be a part of this list, please let us know. We're happy to be open-minded. It doesn't mean it's going to make our favorites list, Les Miserables. But anyway, it's just one of those things. You do you, we do us. Cats. Yeah. So be
Cats is
careful.
not on this list.
Cats is not on the list. Neither is Les Mis. We really like happy musicals around here. So although, riding off into the sunset with the damsel in distress, those are our kinds of films. We love those.
His anyway.
Yeah, mine anyway.
All right.
But anyway, let's get started. We've got 10 and some honorable mentions. We've got some great movie musicals. So let's get started.
All right. First up, our honorable mentions. We have first Dreamgirls. It is based off of the Broadway musical of the same name. This version stars Beyonce, Jennifer Hudson, Eddie Murphy,
Jamie Foxx. Yeah.
And Danny Glover, several other amazing artists and actors.
All-star cast, incredible film. Very much brings you back to the Motown days of the 60s, the early Motown days, and especially shows you how the struggles that it took to get a girl band off and running. This one loosely based on Diana Ross and the Supremes, but and when you watch it, you can tell kind of the parallelism that they use. But it is a fictional story about non-fictional things that went on and things that are not too hard to imagine happening as girl bands and boy bands, for that matter, came into the Motown sound.
All right, up next we have Bye Bye Birdie, starring Dick Van Dyke and Janet Leigh and Anne Margaret.
Shout out to Ball Knob High School's production of Bye Bye Birdie, of which I ran the spotlight for.
Anyway, it's okay, Daddy.
It's okay.
This movie is it's definitely a product of its time. It's a little bit cheesy. It's kind of got the Elvis vibe going with Conrad Birdie. And from what I understand, it is very different from the Broadway show on which it is based. From what I understand, it was changed a little bit to make it more of a springboard for Anne Margaret rather than a Dick Van Dyke and Janet Leigh stealing the show type thing, even though they did steal the show from Anne Margaret.
I put on a happy face. I mean, what more do you need? Dick Van Dyke in anything, just about anything musical, is going to be outstanding. We like this film around here in the Crossing King Garage, and just it's a throwback to a time gone by. So
up next we have The Wizard of Oz. Yes, I know, shocking that it's here in the honorable mentions. Here's the thing. Yes, the music is good. Yes, it is star-studded cast of its era. Yes, the technology advancements with the bringing it into color out of the sepia tones, all of that is massively impressive. However, The Wizard of Oz is not a favorite here in the Crossing Kin household.
We have oftentimes wondered why in the world they show this thing at Christmas time.
For whatever reason. But I will say, I for one am super excited about the upcoming Wicked movie, which is technically kind of a spin-off-ish of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Wizard of Oz is one of those films that you really either love it, or you just would rather go over the rainbow.
Alright, up next we have Anchors Aweigh. Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra are a couple of sailors on leave in Hollywood, of all places. And just having a rip-roaring time. It's a 4-day leave, so they've only got 4 days to make the most of it. This movie is iconic for one scene in particular, with Gene Kelly dancing with Jerry the Mouse.
That's right. It's one of those films that insert animation, and it is so cool. It is so cool. The music is really, really good in the overall film, but they took a 4-day trip and put it into 2 hours. And what more can you say? Gene Kelly, Frank Sinatra, Tom and Jerry.
And our last honorable mention is Into the Woods, based on the Stephen Sondheim classic musical. Disney did a pretty alright job with this. I mean, it definitely could have been way worse. Cats. But excuse me.
No worries.
But
Kind of
yeah.
furball.
But anyway, while I very much love this musical, we wanted to make things fair when compiling our list. So, because Dad kind of has a thing against it due to a week-long earworm that
I was traumatized.
He's a little bit traumatized.
Shout out to all of you high schools that have done this musical. It's a great, great musical to do on high school. It takes the fairy tale themes and kind of bends them on their ear and just, but you can't ever get over the music. I mean, don't get me wrong. The music is incredible. I just don't want to be singing it. Yeah, please, absolutely. Mr. Sondheim is obviously already missed in Broadway. But I don't want to be hearing the music 3 years later.
That being said, Johnny Depp does a fantastic job. Meryl Streep does her job quite well. Emily Blunt is flawless. James Corden is surprisingly very good in this. And Chris Pine has a voice. Who knew? So yeah, Into the Woods, our final honorable mention. And now, on with the countdown. Coming in at number 10. This one kind of falls in the brand spanking new stuff. Although it's relatively older as far as films go, it is still, it's 15. That thing is 15 years old. 2008.
Wow.
This film we're about to talk about came out in 2008.
Enchanted. That's how you know she's your love.
Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, and Idina Menzel, who doesn't sing.
Wow.
That is the most shocking thing. Idina Menzel plays Patrick Dempsey's girlfriend Nancy, and she doesn't sing a single note. Elphaba from Wicked, Elsa from Frozen, doesn't sing in this movie, and it's amazing.
Sweetie, I think this is just something you need to let it go.
Jodie Benson also has a cameo in this film as Patrick Dempsey's secretary,
which is awesome. Anytime you see live action Jodie Benson, it's a plus.
There are a ton of like little cameos and music cues and references to classic Disney fairy tales in this movie. This movie had no right being as good as it is.
It was one of those surprising
hits.
Hollywood hits that like Kristen said, nobody really counted it to be as good as it actually was.
Amy Adams was pretty unknown at the time. James Marsden had just finished with X-Men, and Patrick Dempsey was
still
McDreamy on Grey's Anatomy. So it was still kind of an unusual cast,
and it
to say
worked.
the least. And it worked
very, very well.
It did not, however, work well in Disenchanted, its belated sequel. That movie is terrible.
Don't mince words, Kristen. Tell us how you really feel.
It has a very big lack of James Marsden, and that hurt it significantly.
It was a very much of a letdown in comparison to the original film, which was a let up because we loved it. Happy Little Working Song.
Yes.
With
I
critters that you would never sing with.
I still sing a lot of these songs regularly.
Absolutely. Sing with roaches, baby. Cockroaches.
But it has a beautiful story. It's just so heartwarming.
Yeah, as far as a fairy tale goes, it really throws back and throws into the face somewhat all of those Disney fairy tales, kind of making fun of themselves just a little bit with a lot of tongue in cheek.
Yes.
And it's just adorable. It's very enjoyable.
Too bad Disney kind of took that and is now using that as the standard for their movies.
Unfortunately, yeah. But
do it like Enchanted does.
Do it like Enchanted, yes.
Alright, up next, at number 9, we're sticking with Disney for the moment, and we're talking about Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins.
Julie Andrews is flawless in this film, and say what you want about his accent, Dick Van Dyke can do no wrong when he's in a musical.
He cannot pull off Cockney, but He's Dick Van Dyke. Love him as Bert the Chimney Sweep. Absolutely adorable.
I still can't. It boggles my mind that P.L. Travers didn't want him in the movie. Go watch Saving Mr. Banks, which is kind of the prequel or kind of the behind the scenes movie to Mary Poppins. Now, be warned, it is a Disney bent film because it is a Disney made film.
Right.
So they're not going to make Disney look bad, but it does give some insight into Miss Travers and a lot of really cool behind the scenes stuff with Mary Poppins. If you want a really good like New Year's marathon to watch, go Saving Mr. Banks, original Mary Poppins Returns. It is a good little trilogy. But the original Mary Poppins, from the music from the Sherman Brothers, oh my goodness. Like, that's my childhood.
Step in Time.
Step in Time!
Step in Time. Which is very similar to another song that we're going to probably talk about here in a minute. But it's just one of those films that everyone embraces. And the animation sequence is absolutely adorable. Who doesn't love penguins? Who doesn't love penguins? Now, for number 8, we have coming in at number 8 another one that might be a little bit of a surprise to you that it's as low on our list, but it's not. Let me qualify this. Number 8 is The Sound of Music. The Sound of Music is this phenomenal musical. I didn't like it as much as a film. There's a difference between the two. The music is absolutely, and it's iconic. It is Julie Andrews again in one of her best roles. This is one of those most loved musicals. It's always shown at Easter time for some reason. I
think that's because Mother Abbess singing "Climb Every Mountain."
The religiosity behind it, I suspect, and that some of it is shot in an abbey. Perhaps I don't get it with Jesus rising from the dead, but that's just me. But The Sound of Music, incredible music. I would consider it a war movie just because of the aspects that it has. Beautifully portrays the Von Trapps. It's just not one of those stories that I connect with immediately like some of these other films do.
But like he
phenomenal.
Said, music is phenomenal. Do Re Mi and So Long Farewell. Those are probably my two favorite from the track. And yes, I grew up on Sound of Music, so it's got a good dose of nostalgia.
Out of all of the movie musicals, it still comes in at number 8.
Yes. Moving on to number 7, we now enter the land of all that jazz. Chicago, ladies and gentlemen, starring Catherine Zeta-Jones, Renee Zellweger, Richard Gere, and Queen Latifah, as well as John C. Reilly, making a very surprising but also really, really, really good turn in this film. He's got a great voice.
He's such a sympathetic character all the way through this film too. You really want to cheer for him.
He's the only sympathetic character.
Yeah, everybody else is like, let him die in prison.
But I mean, it's one of those weird movies where you're actively kind of rooting for terrible people. But that's kind of the gist of Broadway. This is, of course, based off of the Broadway musical of the same name, Chicago, that won like all the Tonys the year it came out. And what's even better, everybody in the cast does their own singing, does their own dancing, does all their own stuff. There is no dubbing, there is no body doubles, which is something that, unless you were already trained, is not something you would necessarily have done at the time this movie was made. Catherine Zeta-Jones even cut her hair just so she would look more like Velma.
Velma.
Yes.
So
it's one of those things where it goes from a very upbeat with that jazz, and then it goes into the cell block tango. He had it coming.
Well, yeah, anyway.
But yeah, Chicago is great. It's got amazing set numbers, specifically with Cell Block Tango and Queen Latifah's number, When You're Good to Mama.
Mm-hmm.
That has a really, really good, and it's kind of fantastical because a lot of these numbers are kind of taking place in Roxy's head.
Right.
And like it's one of those musicals that you kind of have to just sit back and enjoy rather than try to figure out what the crap is.
It's one of those guilty pleasure movies.
Yes, that is probably the best way to phrase
Yeah.
it.
Guilty pleasure musical.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where most musicals sit anymore.
Yeah, seems like it. So, but as far as guilty pleasure musicals go,
it comes in at number 7.
Number 7. Number 6, classic, harken back to old Broadway, incredible film. Just Jane Powell, Howard Keel, who became in Dallas
I was
later
about
on.
to ask if I thought he was in Dallas.
Yeah, he was in Dallas in the later seasons
He was
of
also
the
in
television
Showboat,
show.
right?
Yes, he was. He was in everything. I mean, he
For a
was
bit.
in Annie Get Your Gun. He was in Take Me Back to the Black Hills of Dakota. Calamity Jane. Howard Keel was the leading man for musicals
There for a time.
in the heyday of Hollywood's musical time period.
What's really, really cool about this musical is that they didn't necessarily hire actors. With the exception of Howard and the guy who plays Benjamin, most everybody in the cast, especially on the male side, primarily came from Broadway and were Broadway dancers. Now, I know you have a little tidbit.
Yes, but we're talking about Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I'm not sure that we even mentioned the title.
It's Seven Brides for
We
Seven
love
Brothers.
talking about this stuff so much that we just assume, hey, they know what we're talking about. No, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers comes in at number 6. Now, one of the actresses that plays in this movie becomes the Catwoman in the 60s Batman show. She's listed as Julie Newman in the credits, but she becomes Julie Newmar, who plays a wonderful Catwoman in the Batman television show of the 60s. She does a beautiful job as one of the sobbing women in this film, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
I walk around singing the music from this film.
Jane
often.
Powell, absolutely wonderful in the film. Howard Keel is Howard Keel.
Their voices blend well together
They
as
do.
well.
They absolutely do.
It's gorgeous. I love this movie. Please don't view it with a modern lens, however.
That's true. It is one of those films, as many of the films that we're talking about today, that really need to be viewed in their contextual time period. But you need to see Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It's our number 6 on the Crossing Kin musical countdown.
And coming in hot at number 5, we have a movie that we've actually talked about a little bit, a couple of times on Crossing Kin already. This film is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
We love Chitty Chitty Bang Bang!
If you want to hear some of our other thoughts on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, check out the cards that should hopefully be flashing above my head. One of them is for our Let's Recast It. The other is for our most recent video, our top 10 iconic cars.
Iconic cars. Now, there are a lot of things that you're going to learn about in our Recast It.
So we won't reiterate it
We
here.
won't reiterate, just that there's a huge James Bond connection between Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and James Bond. And so go and watch the Recast It for all of those connections.
But this film obviously stars Dick Van Dyke, and my goodness, he's still kind of playing Bert here, but especially when he gets into Me Old Bamboo, which is just a step in time, notched up a little bit. But you know what? This is a fun, phantasmagorical story. That's the word on the box. It's not my word.
And in the song.
And in the song.
Personally, I like
Chitty Chitty Bang Bangs.
I like Me Old Bamboo
Mhm.
better than Step in Time.
The music was written by the same gentleman, the Sherman Brothers.
Sherman Brothers wrote the music. Right. Disney's.
They were on loan from Disney
Right.
to MGM for this specific musical, and from what I've actually looked up, it does have a Broadway show based around it. I think Dick Van Dyke even participated in the Broadway show at one point in time. And yeah, it's just a feel-good musical. It's just fun, fantasy, and Dick Van Dyke playing a dad.
Again, go back and check out all of the James Bond connections in our previous Recast It for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I think you'll be surprised at some of the cast folks that we came up with, but we love everything Chitty Chitty Bang Bang here at the Crossing Kin Garage. Our kids were raised on the film. It's another one of those films that used to, anyway, be shown only at Christmas time. Pretty Chitty Bang Bang, The Hills Are Alive. I just, those seem to have been a 1-2 punch back in the day. You get Charlie Brown Christmas, yeah, got that. Then Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, okay. Magical, Sound of Music, okay. All right, just curious. That's my childhood. We had it great back in the 60s and 70s. Moving right along. We're coming in at number 4. Number 4 is another...
No, it's number 4. I'm
number
sorry.
4. Number 4 is one of those other films that is just a salute to those high schools who have many of them done it, including my shout out to my friends at Ball Knob High School. We did Oklahoma. I was Federal Marshal Cord Elam. I had 2 lines. He's dead. I think he's really dead. Talking about poor Judd. Poor Judd. Anyway, Oklahoma is that quintessential classic Hollywood musical.
Shirley Jones starring, right?
Her debut, in fact, I think. Shirley Jones is exquisite in it. She and her co-star, just lost his name, pair up also in a musical called State Fair. Not quite as good as this, but it's just incredible.
And this is actually the film that spawned Oklahoma, to the best of my knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, it started its life as this film and has gone on to be kind of a juggernaut and a bit of a Broadway staple. Hugh Jackman got his start as Curly in Oklahoma, and most recently it had a bit of a revival in New York at a theater that I believe is called The Round, where they kind of not revamped but brought a few new things to it that helped flesh out certain characters.
There's just some incredible music, a really cool couple of moments that are just poignant and really shows off some of Shirley Jones' chops as she goes through. We're going to speak about her again very, very shortly. In fact,
it's
right now.
So, all right, number 3. We have, from what I understand, it was your favorite musical there for a time. We have The Music Man.
This is that film, we mentioned Shirley Jones. Shirley Jones she's Mrs. Partridge on The Partridge Family from the 70s television show. Come on, get happy, okay? But that is not her claim to fame. Her claim to fame came from these incredible, great 60s musicals where she was able to show her giftedness and her talent, and we adore her in The Music Man. Robert Preston reprises his role from Broadway, and we got trouble, my friends.
The director of this movie is actually I think, isn't she like the Broadway director too? They basically just brought the whole cast with the exception of maybe Buddy Hackett.
I think Buddy Hackett is new to the film. Yeah,
I think Buddy Hackett. This was also, I think, one of the earliest movies of Ron Howard.
Yes, absolutely, and it's the only movie where you'll ever hear Shabuchi.
Shapoopy.
Okay, that one. Shapoopy. Regardless, it's a great word. That's the only musical you will ever hear this word in. Shapoopy. Shapoopy.
That girl is hard to get.
Yeah, so is the word. Who gets that word? Anyway.
Buddy Hackett does.
Buddy Hackett was absolutely incredible. He was at the top of his game when he shot this film. He was a stand-up comedian and really absolutely hilarious in this role. But 76 Trombones steals the show. And
Mary in the Library.
Mary in the Library. So many great songs. Trouble in River City. And then a barbershop quartet all the way
The Buffalo Bills, right?
The Buffalo Bills were the barbershop quartet that just filled in these gaps so incredibly well and propelled the narrative on. It's just, The Music Man is just one of those films that we absolutely love. We highly recommend you show it to your kids and that you get them onto this musical. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Robert Preston at the height of his game.
Number 2, Dad.
Moving on to number 2. You've wondered, I'm sure, with all of the great movie musicals that we've talked about so far, what in the world can be number 1 and number 2? Well, perhaps you figured out that Singing in the Rain has got to be up here somewhere. It comes in at actually number 2. It's one of our absolute favorites. It's not our absolute favorite, but it's one of them.
Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds, and Donald O'Connor.
Make 'em Laugh is one of the absolute best musical songs in a movie ever. I think he was rushed to the hospital after one of the takes on Make It Laugh. Of course, it helps that he was smoking 7 packs of cigarettes a day at the time too.
And then he came back the next day and did it all again.
Flawlessly. Just absolutely Donald O'Connor flawless. Gene Kelly at one of the peaks of his career.
He shot the rain scene with a massive cold. The
That's
Singing in the Rain.
So many great stories.
Massive cold. He also directed the film.
And it's a film about the coming age of talking films. The only weird thing, I really think this is the only thing that keeps it out of number 1 is that whole dream sequence with Sid Charisse. It just comes off as a little bit weird and out of taste, not taste, but out of sorts for the rest of the film. Beautifully done.
It just seems out of place.
It just seems out of place.
This is also technically a jukebox musical. Singing in the Rain, Wedding of the Painted Doll, I think Make 'Em Laugh might have been an original for the film.
Right.
But most of the other songs in this film are songs that were used in other musicals back at that same time when this was or around the time that this film is set in the late 20s, early 30s.
Now,
Hollywood, when talkies were just starting to come into being. We have reached number 1.
The numero uno. It is a film that our family saw as a trailer at other films.
And then 5 times in theaters.
And then we watched it 5 times in theaters.
The film is The Greatest Showman. And
Wow.
like I said, we saw it 5 times in theaters. And I'm convinced that part of that is how it stayed number 4 at the box office for a staggering 16 weeks, I think.
And the soundtrack remains
On the
on
Hot
Billboard.
100.
On probably some of the other countdowns as well, but it remained on the Hot 100. We were pushing this thing so hard, because the soundtrack is absolutely wonderful.
Starring Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, Zendaya, Michelle Williams, Rebecca Ferguson, who if you're a Mission Impossible fan, you will recognize her from the most recent bunch of movies, as well as Keala Settle.
Yeah, Rebecca Ferguson doesn't do her own singing.
She is the only one who's dubbed.
But she does a great job in the role that she's given. And this film brings the Broadway darling, Keala Settle, and brings her into the mainstream.
The Oscars robbed her!
Without doubt. We could do an entire Crossing Kin about our disdain for the awards given in Hollywood. Even to a certain extent the People's Choice Awards. We don't get it. And we don't figure, our Crossing Kin family does either. Maybe we're just, I don't know.
We don't appreciate that Keala Settle was robbed of the Oscar for Best Original Song, and it was
lost
given to Coco. Remember Me from Coco.
Which no one remembers.
I know the song. It is a fine song, but This Is Me is an anthem. This Is Me is the anthem.
It is. It's just all the way around. Benji Patak and his partner, writing partner. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Kasich?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, the partner team that wrote the music,
Benji and Paul,
that wrote the music for The Greatest Showman, absolutely outstanding. They also wrote the musical and music for Lyle Lyle Crocodile. If you've not seen it, great family film. Not to the level of The Greatest Showman or any of our other top 10s, but it is a good family musical that you can watch and introduce to your children.
Now, I do want to say this about The Greatest Showman. If you are looking for historical accuracy, you've come to the wrong film.
True.
This movie is about P.T. Barnum, and he, for all intents and purposes, he was a con man.
Yeah, for everything that we can find out, he wasn't really a very nice man. But
I look at this through the same lens that I look at the great Danny Kaye musical, Hans Christian Andersen, which that musical outright says at the beginning, this is a fairy tale about the master of fairy tales. And that's kind of how I look at The Greatest Showman.
Yes.
This is a fantastical film about the man who made his living off of the fantastical.
And it's a great film. It's a good feel-good film. Hugh Jackman does a wonderful job. All of the actors do a wonderful job. They all do their own singing except for Rebecca Ferguson. And it's It's our favorite. It is our number one musical, movie musical that we continue to. I mean, it is the movie that we like to watch at Christmas time.
Actually, that is true. We've watched it every December since we got it on DVD.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang,
Blu-ray.
Greatest Showman. What more do you need? Charlie Brown Christmas. Sorry. Probably the Nativity Story.
Well, that's our list, ladies and gentlemen. How'd we do? Did we miss something obvious? Did we completely overlook the absolute best musical ever? I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
But did we, in your opinion, overlook the best film musical of all time?
If we did, it's because possibly we haven't seen it.
We're wrapping things up here for today.
We're so glad you're a part of a Crossing Kim family. Thank you so much for watching us week by week, telling your friends about the Crossing Kim family. We're so happy to invite you into the garage here every 2 weeks, or maybe the living room when it's hot, or it is fall. So it could be getting a little chilly in the Crossing Kim garage if you watch us and we have parkas on. The next episode will be in the living room again. So, but we're so happy that you're part of our Crossing Kim family. Hey, let's grow the family. Get some adopted nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, cousins, whatever. We are happy to have them here at the Crossing Kim garage.
Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and
ring that notification bell
so that you know anytime we upload.
That's right. I'm Randy.
And I'm Kristen.
We are so glad you're part of the Crossing Kim family, and we're glad that you joined us today for what we hope is one of your favorite episodes, the Movie Musical Countdown.
We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.
That's all we have for now.
Bye.